Tonight's episode includes a Manta Sleep affiliate link, which helps support the show at no extra cost to you. If you've ever tried sleeping with a regular sleep mask and found that light still gets in around the edges, or the mask presses against your eyes and just feels uncomfortable, Manta Sleep takes a different approach. Their masks are designed to give you a true blackout experience while keeping pressure off your eyes, so you can actually relax and forget you're wearing one. They also have several different versions depending on how you sleep, and one of the coolest is their Bluetooth audio sleep mask. It combines the blackout mask with built-in audio so you can listen to music, white noise, or even your favorite sleep stories without having earbuds in your ears all night. And for a podcast like this, that combination just makes sense. Block out the light, put on a story, and let everything else disappear for a while. If you're looking to upgrade your nighttime routine, check out Manta Sleep and find the mask that works best for you. You can find a direct link to them in the description of each episode. They also ship worldwide. Thanks for supporting the show. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. Tonight you will drift into a warm Tuscan kitchen at bedtime, where almond biscotti cool beside a softly glowing hearth, and every quiet detail invites the body to rest. Let yourself settle now. There is nothing more to solve, nothing more to carry. The day has done all it needed to do, and you may lay it gently down, as someone might set a folded shawl across the back of a chair. Feel the place where your body is supported. Notice how the bed or the couch or the quiet room around you is holding you without asking anything in return. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands loosen. Let the muscles around your eyes grow smooth and calm. Take a slow breath in, as though breathing in the scent of warm vanilla, toasted almonds, and clean linen drying in a soft country breeze. Then breathe out, releasing whatever has followed you here from the day. Outside the story, the world may continue in its own way. But inside this small circle of listening, all is peaceful. A kitchen waits in the hills of Tuscany, tucked inside an old stone farmhouse with green shutters, terracotta floors, and a wooden table polished by generations of gentle hands. Evening has fallen there. The lavender has dimmed to silver in the garden. The olive trees are whispering under the moon, and in that kitchen a tray of biscotti rests near the hearth, cooling slowly in the fragrant dark. So breathe again. Inhale quiet. Exhale effort. Let the story begin to move on without needing you to guide it. Let it become something you simply hear from far away, like a candlelit memory or a dream already forming. There was, in the low hills, beyond a small Tuscan village, a farmhouse that seemed to have grown from the earth itself. Its walls were made of warm stone, the color of honey and old bread crusts. And at sunset the whole house glowed, as though it remembered every summer evening it had ever held. Cypress trees stood along the lane in a patient row, dark and slender against the sky. Beyond them, fields rolled away in soft folds, planted with olives, vines, and herbs that released their scent when the evening air cooled. In this house lived Signora Lucia, who had silver in her hair, kindness in her eyes, and a way of moving through her kitchen that made even the spoons seem to rest more quietly in their drawer. She had lived in the farmhouse for many years, and before her mother had lived there, and before that, her grandmother. The kitchen had known them all. It had held the sound of morning coffee, the laughter of cousins in summer, the soft hush of winter rain, and the gentle clink of cups being set out for someone who had walked up the hill at dusk. Lucia's kitchen was the heart of the house. It was not large, but it was deep with comfort. Copper pans hung from hooks along one wall, their rounded bellies catching the firelight. Earthenware bowls sat in open shelves, glazed in cream, blue, and the pale green of olive leaves. A bundle of rosemary hung near the window, drying slowly, and beside it dangled sprigs of bay and thyme tied with faded string. The table in the center of the room was made from chestnut wood, smooth in some places and worn in others, marked by the history of flour, dough, lemons, elbows, stories, and quiet cups of tea. At night, when the house was still, the kitchen seemed to breathe. The hearth gave a low orange glow. The floor tiles held the memory of the day's warmth. The old clock on the wall ticked in a patient, sleepy rhythm. Never in a hurry, never behind. From outside came the far-off murmur of crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves when a breeze moved down from the hills. On this particular evening, Lucia had decided to make biscotti, not because there was a holiday or a visitor expected, or any reason that needed explaining. She made them because the night had turned gentle. She made them because the almonds in the pantry smelled sweet and fresh. She made them because sometimes, before sleep, a small ritual of warmth and patience could turn an ordinary evening into something tender. The sun had gone down in layers of peach and rose, leaving the windows dark and reflective. Lucia had lit a lamp on the table, and its golden circle fell across a linen cloth, a bowl of flour, a small dish of sugar, a bottle of olive oil, eggs in a pale ceramic cup, and a heap of whole almonds with brown skins smooth as polished wood. She moved slowly. There was no need to rush biscotti. They belonged to the hour between day and dream, when all things could be measured by instinct, memory, and the quiet pleasure of doing one simple task well. Lucia sifted flour into the bowl, and the flour fell like a soft white veil. She added sugar, a pinch of salt, and a little baking powder, then stirred with a wooden spoon worn smooth from many years of use. The spoon had belonged to her mother, who had used it for soups, cakes, sauces, and sauces that became soups when someone unexpected arrived hungry at the door. Lucia smiled as she turned the dry ingredients together. The almonds waited beside the bowl, and when she poured them in, they made a muted sound, like small pebbles tumbling into a stream. Then came the eggs, golden and rich, and the faint green silk of olive oil. She added a little honey from a neighbor's bees, a curl of lemon zest, and a few drops of vanilla, so fragrant that the kitchen seemed to lift its head and listen. With slow circles of the spoon, The mixture gathered itself from powder into crumbs, from crumbs into dough, and from dough into something strong and supple under her hands. Lucia turned it on to the flowered table. Outside, the moon rose behind the cypress trees. Inside, she folded and pressed the dough, feeling the almonds beneath her palms. Each movement was steady and untroubled. The dough did not need to be perfect. It only needed to be handled with care. She shaped it into long, gentle loaves and placed them on a baking tray lined with parchment. Then she slid the tray into the oven, whose warmth had been waiting like an embrace. The first baking began. While the biscotti loaves rose and firmed in the oven, Lucia washed the bowl and spoon, wiping the table clean with slow, circular strokes. She set water to warm for chamomile tea, and from a little drawer took out a folded napkin embroidered with tiny blue flowers. She placed it beside a cup painted with olives and a saucer with a chipped rim. She did not mind the chip. The saucer had been chipped long ago during a spring storm, when thunder rolled over the house and her young nephew had startled while carrying dishes from the table. The saucer had struck the floor, but instead of breaking, it had simply lost a small curved piece from its edge. Her nephew had cried, and Lucia had kissed his forehead and told him that things could be loved even more after they had been mended by time. The saucer stayed. It served tea beautifully. It had become part of the kitchen's quiet pattern. From the oven came the scent of baking dough. It filled the room gradually, mingling with the herbs, the wood smoke, the lemon, the almonds. It moved into the corners and up into the rafters. It brushed against the curtains and settled into the warm stone walls. It was the kind of scent that made the whole house seem safe. Lucia sat for a while near the hearth and listened to the night. The old cat, Nocciola, came in from the hallway, her paws nearly silent on the terracotta floor. She was the color of hazelnuts and cream, with a white chin and green eyes that had long ago learned the art of asking for nothing while expecting everything. Nocciola crossed the kitchen, paused beneath the table, then chose the braided rug nearest the fire and curled herself into a soft crescent. Lucia watched her with affection. "Wise one," she murmured. The cat closed her eyes as if agreeing. After a while, the kitchen timer gave its small bell. Not a sharp sound, but a silver little note that seemed almost shy in the quiet room. Lucia rose, wrapped a cloth around the oven handle, and opened the door. A wave of warmth came out, carrying the deepening fragrance of toasted almonds and honeyed crust. The loaves had turned pale gold. She placed the tray on the table and let them rest. Biscotti, she knew, needed to cool before they could be sliced. Their name carried the memory of being baked again, twice warmed into crispness. But between the first baking and the second, there had to be patience. So Lucia waited. She poured chamomile tea into the cup, and steam drifted upward in soft twists. She held the cup in both hands and went to stand by the window. The kitchen window looked toward the garden. In daylight, one could see lavender, sage, a narrow path of uneven stones, and a low wall beyond which the olive grove began. At night, the garden became a gentler thing, less made of shapes than of shadows, fragrance, and moonlight. The lavender looked like mist. The leaves of the sage shone faintly. The path was a pale ribbon leading nowhere in particular, or perhaps leading only towards sleep. A small breeze touched the window glass. In the distance, the village bell sounded, softened by the hills. It was not loud enough to count, not clear enough to disturb. It simply drifted through the night and faded. Lucia sipped her tea. There were many evenings in a life, she thought, and most of them passed without ceremony. Yet some evenings, simple and unplanned, became luminous because one noticed them. A warm cup, a sleeping cat, a tray of almond loaves cooling on the table, the moon on the garden, the quiet steadiness of hands that knew what to do. When the loaves were ready, Lucia took up her serrated knife. The blade made a whispering sound through the crust. She sliced each loaf on a gentle diagonal, revealing the pale interior studded with almonds. Each slice fell softly to the board. Some were wide, some narrow, none exactly like another. She laid them cut side down on the tray, careful and unhurried, then returned them to the oven for their second baking. The kitchen settled again. This was the sleepiest part of making biscotti. The work was almost done. The house was warm. The tea was nearly finished. The cat was deep in dreams, one paw twitching now and then, as if she were walking through sunlit grass. The oven did its slow work without needing help. Lucia took a shawl from the back of a chair and wrapped it around her shoulders. It was soft, brown wool, smelling faintly of cedar and lavender. She sat near the hearth and let her gaze rest on the fire. The flames were low, mostly embers now. They shifted and sighed. Within the ash, a small blue flame licked the edge of a log, then disappeared. The glow pulsed softly like the breathing of something ancient and kind. In that glow, Lucia remembered her grandmother's stories. Her grandmother had believed every kitchen had a guardian, not a grand spirit with wings or thunder, but a small, shy presence that lived wherever bread was baked, soup was stirred, and someone remembered to leave crumbs for the birds. As a child, Lucia had imagined this guardian as a little woman, no taller than a rolling pin, with a flour-dusted apron and hair the color of smoke. She had imagined her sleeping in a walnut shell near the hearth, waking only to keep milk from boiling over, or to whisper patience into tired hands. Lucia no longer knew whether she believed such things in the way children believe them, but she believed that kitchens gathered care. She believed that care could linger in rooms, in wood, in stone, in the handle of an old spoon. She believed that kindness, repeated often enough, became almost visible in the air. And on quiet nights like this, with biscotti crisping in the oven and moonlight at the window, it was easy to imagine that something small and benevolent moved unseen through the kitchen, smoothing the edges of the world. The timer chimed again. Lucia opened the oven and turned the slices. They had begun to deepen in color, their edges becoming crisp and golden. She returned them to the heat for just a little longer. then stood with her hands folded, watching through the oven glass. There was a peaceful satisfaction in watching something finish becoming itself. The biscotti had begun as separate things: flour, almonds, eggs, sugar, oil, honey, lemon. Each had been plain enough on its own, but slowly, through warmth and mixing, resting and baking, they had become something fragrant, something meant to be shared, something that belonged to evening. When at last Lucia took them from the oven, the biscotti were the color of late sunlight. She set the tray on a wire rack. The slices gave off a faint crackle as they cooled, a tiny music of heat leaving crust. Nocciola opened one eye, considered the matter, and closed it again. Lucia laughed softly. She selected the prettiest slices for the old blue tin on the shelf, the one decorated with painted swallows. The rest she left on the rack to cool completely. One small piece had broken at the corner. This, Lucia decided, was not a flaw, but an invitation. She placed the broken piece on her saucer and poured a little more tea. Then she sat at the table. The first bite was crisp, then tender, then filled with the warm sweetness of almond and honey. She dipped the next bite into chamomile, letting it soften for just a moment before tasting it. The flavor was simple, comforting, and full of the quiet work of the evening. Outside, a night bird called once from the olive grove. Lucia listened until the sound faded. The kitchen seemed even stiller afterward, as if the whole house had paused to hear it. On the far side of the room, a narrow door led to the pantry. It was an old pantry, cool even in summer, with stone shelves and jars lined in tidy rows. There were beans and lentils, dried figs, walnuts, jars of apricot jam, bottles of olive oil, sacks of flour, and little bundles of herbs. Lucia rose and carried the blue tin to the pantry shelf. She placed it beside a jar of candied orange peel and ran a hand over the lid. Tomorrow, perhaps, someone would come by. Perhaps Signor Beppe from the lower road would stop to ask whether she needed any wood stacked before the rain. Perhaps the baker's daughter would climb the hill with fresh ricotta. Perhaps no one would come at all. Either way, the biscotti would be waiting, and there was comfort in that. A house with something ready to offer felt awake in a good way, even while it slept. As Lucia stepped back from the pantry, she noticed a faint sound at the window, a soft tap, then another. Not rain. The sky was clear. She crossed the kitchen and looked out. There, on the stone sill, stood a small brown owl. It was round and solemn, with feathers puffed against the cool night air and eyes like polished amber. It blinked at Lucia through the glass, utterly calm, as though stopping by kitchens at bedtime was the most natural thing in the world. Lucia smiled. "Well," she whispered, "good evening to you." The owl did not answer, but it tilted its head slightly, listening. Lucia opened the window just a little. Cool air slipped into the room, carrying the scent of lavender, earth, and leaves. She did not feed the owl, for owls had their own supper and their own ways. But she rested her hand on the sill and shared a quiet moment with it. The owl looked past her into the golden kitchen. Its gaze moved over the copper pans, the table, the cooling biscotti, the drowsing cat. Nocciola opened both eyes now, saw the owl, and remained wisely still. The owl blinked again, then lifted itself into the night without a sound. Its wings crossed the moonlit garden and vanished among the olives. Lucia closed the window. The visit left behind no mystery that needed solving. It was simply one of those soft gifts the night sometimes brings to those who are not rushing. A bird on a sill, a breeze through herbs, a moment shared between warm indoors and cool outdoors. She returned to the table and began to tidy for the night. The kettle was emptied. The cup was rinsed and placed upside down on the draining board. The knife was washed and dried. The flour cloth was shaken outside the back door, where a fine dust disappeared into the dark, like pale smoke. The table was wiped until it shone faintly in the lamplight. The biscotti cooled. One by one, Lucia lifted them from the rack and placed them into the blue tin, where they settled with a dry, delicate sound. She tucked a square of parchment over the top and closed the lid. A few slices she left out on a small plate, covered with a clean napkin in case she wanted them with coffee in the morning. Nocciola stretched, rose, and made a slow path around the kitchen, inspecting the evening's work. She sniffed the leg of a chair, circled the table, and finally pressed her head against Lucia's skirt. Lucia bent to stroke her back. "All is well," she said. And it was. All was well in the old Tuscan kitchen. The oven was off, the fire was low, the dishes were clean. The garden rested under moonlight, the hills were dark and folded around the house like blankets. The village slept in its hollow below, each roof silvered, each window closed, each dream safely tucked away. Lucia took the lamp from the table and carried it toward the hallway, but before leaving the kitchen, she turned back. She always did this. She liked to look once more at the room after the work was done. The hearth, the shelves, the table, the hanging herbs, the blue tin in the pantry shadow, the little plate beneath the napkin. The kitchen seemed to look back at her calm and satisfied. In the old days, her grandmother had said that a well-tended kitchen slept better than an untended one. As a child, Lucia had imagined cupboards sighing with relief, pots settling their lids, chairs leaning into stillness. Now, as an old woman, she did not laugh at the thought. There were many kinds of sleep, and houses had their own. She lowered the lamp flame. The shadows softened. Then Lucia and Nocciola moved down the hallway, leaving the kitchen behind them. Their steps were slow. The cat's tail curved like a question mark in the dimness. The floorboards gave small, familiar creaks under Lucia's slippers, each one known and comforting. Her bedroom faced east toward the olive grove. The bed was made with white linen sheets and a quilt, stitched in faded squares of blue, cream, and rose. On the bedside table were a book, a small glass of water, and a sprig of lavender in a narrow vase. Lucia set the lamp down, opened the window a little, and let the night air enter. It was cool and clean. From somewhere beyond the grove came the soft cry of the owl again, farther away now, already belonging to the dark. Lucia changed into her nightdress and folded her shawl across a chair. Nocciola leapt lightly onto the foot of the bed, turned around several times, and settled herself with immense seriousness. Lucia slipped beneath the covers and felt the linen smooth against her skin. The house was quiet, but not empty quiet. It was the kind of quiet that held everything safely. The quiet of stone walls after sunset, the quiet of bread cooling, herbs drying, embers fading, the quiet of a blue tin filled with biscotti in the pantry, the quiet of olive trees under the stars. Lucia reached to put out the lamp. For a moment, the room glowed amber. Then the flame disappeared, and moonlight took its place. In the darkness, she could still smell almonds faintly on her hands. She breathed it in and smiled. It seemed to her that the whole evening had become a kind of lullaby, made not of music, but of simple things done slowly, measuring, stirring, waiting, baking, sipping tea, watching the moon, listening. Her breathing grew calm. Nocciola purred at the foot of the bed, a low, steady sound, like a little wheel turning in a dream. The curtains moved gently in the night air. The farmhouse rested around them, old and kind, its stones cooling beneath the stars. Down in the kitchen, the final ember in the hearth glowed softly, then dimmed. The blue tin waited on the pantry shelf. The biscotti slept in their crisp golden rows, holding within them the memory of flour, honey, almond, lemon, and fire. They would be there in the morning when sunlight returned to the shutters and the kettle sang again. But for now, they belonged to the quiet. The village slept, the hills slept, the olive leaves trembled once, then settled, and Lucia, warm beneath her quilt, let the last thought of the day drift away like flower dust in moonlight. Now the story grows softer. The kitchen is dark and peaceful. The table is clean. The cup is dry. The herbs hang still by the window. All the small tasks are finished. All the warm scents remain. There is nothing more to do, only rest, only breathing, only the soft night folding itself over the Tuscan hills. Let your own body become quiet now, as quiet as that old farmhouse under the moon. Let your thoughts settle like sugar in a bowl, like almonds in a tin, like embers resting in ash. The night will keep watch. The kitchen will wait. Sleep may come gently, without effort, without hurry. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.